Welcome to the Living a Nordic Life podcast, where we explore a simpler, cosier and more intentional life the Nordic way. I'm Fiona McKenna, your Nordic living guide and founder of Living a Nordic Life, where I share all things Nordic living and show you that a Nordic life is the way to bring intentional calm and healthy habits into your own life, wherever you are in the world. Are you looking for ways to bring simplicity, coziness and calm into your life? Well, let me show you how. Visit the Living a Nordic Life website to explore how I can help you on your journey to simple, healthy and happy calm, the Nordic way. You can subscribe to the podcast right here. And if you want regular inspirational emails sent with love from Norway and straight to your inbox, don't forget to subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters. And so now let's dive into our episode. Welcome to this episode, and today I want to talk to you about why more people are choosing slow living over hustle culture. That was a thing, wasn't it? Some years ago. But there's a particular kind of tired, isn't there, that coffee just can't ever fix. That fatigue that you get. It's the tired that comes from years of treating rest as a luxury instead of a need, which all comes from measuring a good day by how much got crossed off a list instead of how it felt to live it. A lot of people have hit that wall in the past years, and instead of pushing through it the way they used to, they're taking a step back. Do you remember in the 80s and the 90s, it was a bit fashionable, wasn't it, and kind of cool to kind of push through and, work goodness knows how many hours, 18-hour days. And it is really, really bad for us. Slow living, which was once considered a bit of a niche for those with cabins in the forest and sourdough starters. Have you got a sourdough starter? I hope you have. It's become something closer to a kind of quiet correction, a rebalance. But what does slow living actually mean? The idea of slow living isn't about doing less for the sake of just doing less. We don't just sit around on the TV on the settee watching Netflix on TV. It's more about doing things at a pace that they actually deserve. Cooking a meal becomes that instead of putting one together. You then have a conversation instead of just kind of skimming over it. We'll talk about that later, or we'll come back to that. Or, you really get deep into a conversation. And you let your weekend, or whatever, the day off happens to be for you. Your weekend might be Tuesday and Wednesday, for all I know. But it is time for resetting instead of optimising everything. You don't have to fill it. You're allowed to have days that aren't full. People who use this aren't people who quit their jobs or live off the grid. That might be something that appeals to you. I'm sure you look at the Cottage Fairy and, Instagram accounts like that and think, oh my goodness, that would be so lovely. But that isn't what we're doing. We're simply refusing to let that sense of urgency be the overriding feeling that we have every day. That matters, as slow living gets mistaken for laziness quite often by a lot of people, the people that don't understand it. And particularly those who've never kind of separated productivity from worth. And that might be a certain generation or in certain parts of the world that it is considered like that, but we need to actively buck against that. It's less about saying no to ambition and more about understanding that achieving things in life does not have to be hurtful, and hurtful to us and hurtful to the world around us. What a balanced lifestyle looks like in practice. It's learning how to create a healthy work-life balance, and that typically starts smaller than you think. It's not ever some kind of big dramatic thing. More often it's one boundary at a time. We've talked about boundaries before. They're very important. And boundaries are the beginning. It might be no work messages after 7, one meal a day, eaten without a screen anywhere, a weekend morning left unplanned on purpose, or maybe the entire weekend. We frequently do that because my kids get burnt out with peopling all the time. So we will quite frequently have an entire Saturday where we don't do anything, we don't go anywhere. It might be that Andre and I actually get on and do things, but the kids don't, and we don't ever feel we have to justify that. And these things sound minor until you notice how rare they've become in our lives. How many times do you actually do that? And how little we do these things actively. Part of that boundary setting has moved into the digital space itself, and I think that that is probably where we should start setting boundaries. So much of the intrusion that we get in our lives comes through a device, or through the doorbell, or the plug-in phone. People decluttering their attention are also decluttering their tech. There are fewer apps, there are fewer notifications, there are fewer reasons to check a screen out of habit instead of need. And for a lot of them, that includes tightening up the basics of how their devices are protected in the first place. And I've got a bit of advice for you there. If you go into the comments here in my little description, you'll find some links that might be useful. But that's why unplugging comes with a nagging worry about what's happening in the background. Are we missing something? That FOMO, that fear of missing out. So you need some kind of comprehensive solution that means that one less thing pulling attention back to the screen. That happens just when someone's trying to look away from it. There is a cost to the constant hustle, and you may or may not remember, if you don't, I'll tell you, about the kind of hustle culture that there was in the 80s with these city boys in London. They were so stressed that their lifespans were much shorter than everybody else, and they were having heart attacks in their 30s and their 40s, and it just shows what physical effect that kind of hustle can have on you. It might sound exciting and cool, but it does have an impact. It did sell something very simple though, and that is that if you work hard enough, long enough, all the exhaustion would be worth it if you were around to experience it and to enjoy it. And for a while, that work-life balance sold was believed by a lot of people. It was believed by most, actually. But it's not. The gap between effort and reward has stretched so thin that burnout stopped being an occasional hazard and became something closer to normality. It was part of life. If you worked 18 hours or 19 hours a day, you were going to have some physical reaction to it. We start by sacrificing our sleep, don't we? That's the first thing to go, because we think we just have to, I'll stay up a little bit longer and just finish this. It's just an hour less, and then another hour less, until we are not getting anywhere near enough, which is at least 8 hours a day. A night. Might be the day if you do night shifts, who knows. Hobbies then follow. Then the people who used to fill a Tuesday evening. And then what's left is a version of life that runs efficiently, but has absolutely no fun and no breathing room either. Everything is about work, isn't it? And if it's not your business, how much fun is that? And that erosion over time shows up in how people actually describe their weeks. It tends to be in abstractions, not in specifics, like skipped meals, cancelled plans, and a phone that never quite gets put down. We're always looking at it, aren't we? Now tell me that you don't do that. Even at the weekends and the evenings, I have to confess I do that as well. I have to actively put the phone somewhere. Or frequently, which I have done this morning, is lose the phone. It's white. And I put it on a unit and then it's like, where did I put that? And I might spend an hour looking for it. And then I forget and I go and do something. I think I'll go back to it. And actually that's quite good, because then I'm not looking at it. But a healthy and potentially minimalist lifestyle used to mean leaving the office on time, didn't it? Now it has to mean something sturdier, something more robust, because that office follows us home in our pockets and it never leaves us. And that's where the boundaries come in as well, because you need to make it clear to everybody that I stop work at this point. You don't have to be answering emails at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday. I've done that, I have to say. I've answered phone calls at that time as well. But I feel much happier now not doing that. Minimalism is a kind of version of rebellion. Let's all be rebels. It's really exciting. A minimalist lifestyle and slow living, they tend to go together, don't they? Or having slightly less doesn't necessarily have to be minimalism. We think of that as clean white lines, and nothing in a room. It doesn't have to be like that. Just less clutter. And it's easy to see why they go together. Because fewer possessions mean fewer decisions. And less stuff to have to look after. But the more interesting overlap is the commitments and not the objects. It's about meetings people no longer say yes to. You are allowed to say no. And when you start saying no, it's very liberating, I can promise you. The social obligations they've let go of. And subscriptions and side projects that they used to feel mandatory. And now they're optional. Maybe if you're worried about kind of minimalising your life, start with some subscriptions. Or emails that come through that you don't necessarily need or you don't read. Unsubscribe. See how that feels. That's a small step. But minimalism is at the core is about subtraction in service of attention. So is slow living. They're really the same kind of thing, just wearing different clothes. It's about keeping what earns its place and what you love and what you want to have in your life and what makes you feel positive as well. That's very important. And letting everything else go. You don't have to have all the things. You don't have to have it because next door has got it or some friend or your cousin or whatever. You don't have to. So knowing how to create a balanced lifestyle stops being a phrase on company values page and starts being something people build for themselves on purpose, actively doing it. And you don't need to wait for permission from an employer who will probably never offer it. I think the employers that do offer it are probably few and far between. And certainly not if you live in the US or Canada or the UK. And the research backs up why this shift is happening. The American Psychological Association's 2024 Work in America survey found that 70% of US workers reported work-related stress in the last month. That's a lot, isn't it? And that means people off work as well. 57% experiencing effects tied to burnout. Nearly everyone said it mattered to them to work somewhere that respected that line between work hours and personal time, which is a boundary a lot of people have stopped waiting for their employers to draw. We need to tell them. You are allowed to tell them. Slow living doesn't ask anyone to want less in their lives. It only asks them to stop confusing exhaustion with proof of effort. The people who choose it aren't letting go of ambition, but they're choosing things out of a version of ambition that never lets them sacrifice or stop long enough to enjoy what it was all meant for. So go now and do a little bit of subtraction in your life and see how it makes you feel. And maybe you can take a step closer towards slow living. And I will talk to you in the next episode. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters so you can get an email when I release a new episode. It's a quick and easy way to keep up with all things Nordic living. Please visit livinganordiclife.com. You can listen to Living a Nordic Life on lots of podcast apps, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and plenty of others. If you've enjoyed the Living a Nordic Life podcast, why not leave me a rating? So that's the end of Living a Nordic Life for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.